So it seems that CES represents Bosch Mobility's next chapter. The mobility business officially has reorganized into its own unit within Bosch, and then you took the Americas helm on January 1st.
Right.
So how will the new structure change the strategy of Bosch's mobility business?
Yeah, I mean, our strategy is still going to be the leading supplier of automotive solutions and mobility solutions for our customers. That's not going to change. What's really going to be nice for us is we're going to be bringing all of our domains together now, where we'll be able to take advantage of cross-domain activities such as how we handle a powertrain product, how we handle a steering product, how we handle a braking product. And it'll give us more of a chance to ensure that we don't miss any opportunities that exist in other areas. So the reorganization is really a way to handle the transformation of the business as well, because our customers are changing, right? They're being more dynamic, they're moving faster, and our customers are also different than they were before. So you have your general OEMs, your standard OEMs, but now we're moving to more, let's call hyperscalers, or people that require different types of solutions. So this bundling of our mobility business into a overall approach is going to make us just that much more agile.
So your career went through a transition as well. I know you worked on original equipment sales for automakers, and now and you were then mobility, and now continuing on in a larger role with mobility. What does that shift from, the traditional original equipment sales to mobility? What does that entail?
Yeah. So I've been with Bosch now for I think close to 28 years. So I've held positions in production. I've held positions in manufacturing, engineering, and all types of roles. What we're doing is the role of the automotive OEM sales is now moving into the mobility market. So we're redefining it from just being purely automotive to being mobility, right? And the transition from going from a role where I'm primarily responsible for the customer interaction, delighting the customer, to now one where we have the overall responsibility for the business is a great challenge, and we have a great team to do that. And so we announced that we have a board that we've put in place. So we have a very strong controller in Mohammed Abraham. We have a strong manufacturing representative with Hans Baron Kettler, and then we also have Latin America, which is with Gaston, who runs the region for us there. So we have a good team, and we're well-rounded, and I think I don't anticipate any major changes, right?
So you're head of the Americas. There's also a global mobility business, correct? So
Correct.
What is like the regional versus the global perspective? What differences are there in the U.S. and the Americas versus globally for Bosch's mobility structure?
So we never want to ignore that we come from a very strong global organization. So we like to be globally aligned with them, but we want to be regionally focused. So as the regions began to change and China goes its direction and India goes its direction and the Americas come our direction, the regional teams want to have the ability to develop products and solutions that meet the regional requirements. Before, a global solution might be best for all customers, and that got us through up to the point we are now. But as the regions become more important, if you look at the way the government legislations are, the way you have funding within regions, and you also have various government opportunities, the region has to be a stronger voice in that. And we've been given the target to grow to between 20 and 25% of the global turnover, which is also a target that we haven't had in the past. So the global organization is putting a lot of focus on the region by giving us the ability to grow. In the region now, we have the responsibility to bring the opportunities.
So a regional announcement that you made, I believe it was late last year, is the silicon carbide chip plant in California. Can you explain really the significance of that, like what that chip can do for your U.S. customers and why it's important to have it in California?
Yeah, so the first thing we want to do is make sure that we had a national supply base, right? So having a location in California that can make silicon carbide is something that none of our competitors have at the moment, in a position where Bosch is uniquely capable of doing that because of our broad history in manufacturing of semiconductors. So having a location in California is good for a couple of reasons. One, we got a tremendously talented workforce. So when we took over the facility, we brought close to 250 associates and people that know how to make semiconductors at a very high level. So that was a great thing for us. We're in an area that is also very advantageous for partnerships with the government and with the local city officials. So we think it's a good spot for us to build our business. The customers are also pretty happy to have more of a local situation. I mean, we all went through the semiconductor crisis together, and I'm sure you had a couple stories on that.
Yes, of course.
We want to avoid long supply chains, and we want to be closer to where the customers need their product.
So what is the function of this specific chip, the silicon carbide chip that you'll be building there?
Yeah. So silicon carbide can be used in a numerous different ways within the automotive industry. The primary reason for it is you put it into high power inverters that convert energy for battery electric vehicles. And the silicon carbide semiconductor is able to do that by using less energy. So you generally can increase the range of the vehicle by between 6 to 12%, all based upon the vehicle, if you use silicon carbide versus conventional silicon. And also you can reduce the size and the energy consumption. So it generally is the next level up from standard silicon to move to a silicon carbide solution.
Are any of the automakers or battery makers using that yet?
Yeah, so silicon carbide is used across the industry today. If you look into a Tesla vehicle or you look into anything that has a high-powered inverter, they typically move with silicon carbide technology.
Okay, so you talked, Bosch made a lot of announcements this CES so far,
Yes.
a long list that we won't have time to go through all of them. But one of the big themes was around braking patterns, something that you had talked about.
Yeah.
What does that mean, and what patterns does Bosch and the industry need to break as we transition to electric vehicles and then eventually autonomous vehicles, AI in the vehicle, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, we use the term pattern breaks because sometimes you get lulled into doing the same things over and over again and you think you'll get the best results. And it's an old wise saying, but what we want to do is make sure that we address the patterns that we think either make us uncompetitive, don't generate the right fun and vigor for our people, and also don't deliver delight to our customers. Right. So some of the pattern breaks we're looking at is, are we okay with the way the market's developing? Right? Because there's a big balance in the U.S. right now between electrification, internal combustion engines, and other technologies. And we want to make sure that we don't miss a pattern that's in place there, but we also want to break the pattern to make sure that we're delivering the right products at the right quantities. So, as electrification in the press starts to slow down a little bit, we're okay with that. We love electrification, but we also like internal combustions. So we have to watch the pattern and make sure that we don't follow it blindly, and sometimes we have to break it.
Yeah, so how do you sort of manage through those fluctuations in the market for EVs, like you mentioned, and for autonomous vehicles as well? I mean, we're seeing, it seems like a bit of a slowdown with safety concerns there. How do you protect your business from the fluctuations outside of it?
I think one of the benefits you see with our company is we always, we never go all in left or we never go all in right. We always have a balanced approach to technology, and we always want to make sure that we support all levels of technology. I think supporting ICE engines and internal combustion engines is important for us because it's our heritage. So we don't want to give up on that technology, but we also want to develop technology for the future as well. So it's a balancing act, but it also comes with the responsibility of we want to ensure that the technology we have in place today can still be used. And we're a strong partner for existing technologies, but we also want to make the transition to the new stuff. So it's a very delicate balance. It's a great question.
I want to talk about hydrogen's role in the auto industry. So Bosch already makes fuel cell stacks, correct?
Correct.
And now you've announced at CES that you're getting into hydrogen combustion engines this year. So walk me through that. What is the potential for hydrogen in automotive, and what are you doing in those two areas, powertrain and hydrogen fuel for vehicles?
Yeah, I think the more important question would be, how does hydrogen affect mobility?
Okay.
Because automotive is maybe capturing too small of a description. Mobility, as we look at it, would be larger vehicles like Class 7, Class 8 trucks that need to move product either along known routes or industrial technology. And I think hydrogen has a place in that because it has density for energy, it's somewhat easy to transport, and you can manufacture it where you need it. I think that you can look at hydrogen in two ways. One is through a fuel cell, like you talked about, and one is injecting the vapor into an engine, like you would a gas, like natural gas. I guess that's the way I want to comment. It's not liquid hydrogen; it's natural gas, similar to what you would run. And yeah, we're working on products like that for our customers. And I mean, hydrogen is going to be relevant. We just don't know the timeline yet. So we have partners like Nikola that we see are building vehicles now and launching vehicles. If you look into China, China has a lot more hydrogen vehicles on the market, but we think we'll catch up in the US eventually. So we believe we have to play in gasoline, we believe we have to play in electrification and hydrogen going forward, because you have to have all the options available.
Yeah, a lot to consider. For the hydrogen combustion engine, that seems sort of like it could be core to Bosch's strengths. Is it similar to the assembly, or are the components similar to a diesel engine? How do you think of that?
There are similar components as far as how you deliver the vapor to the combustion engine, how you manage it, how you control it. So there are very big similarities to a diesel engine or a gasoline engine, and that's why we think we're highly suited, to be able to do that, because it stems off the history of what we have successfully done with ICE.
Something else you've mentioned at CES, you announced automated valet parking and charging. So last year you guys announced the parking, and now you're adding on the charging part. Can you explain really what that product is? I saw a video, which was a great explainer, but I'd love to hear it in your words and really discuss the importance of it.
Yeah, we had in Detroit, of course, we have an installation called the Detroit Smart Parking Lab. And the Detroit Smart Parking Lab, along with partners like Ford and Bedrock and Bosch, we created a garage where we are automatically valet parking vehicles. And what that means, simply put, is you stop your car, you press a button, and the car will drive to a spot and park itself. What we want to do is take it the next step further, which is drive the car to a location where it can be charged. And then once it gets to a level of charging, move it away from the charging station and bring another vehicle in to charge it. There's also a way to use a robot, right? Instead of moving the car to the charging station, you can even move robots to the cars to charge them. So there's multiple different ways to address charging in a parking infrastructure. One is moving the car to the station and then moving it out, and one is moving the station to the car. So
what is the long-term goal for Bosch when it comes to charging? Is the robot seems like a great solution for now and maybe forever, but what about wireless or inductive charging? Is that on the roadmap as well?
Yeah, we've had many proofs of concept with inductive charging, like trying to charge vehicles, of course, without any connection through multiple layers of concrete, either in the floor or on the walls aside. We're open for all of those types of solutions. Anything that makes it easier and safer and faster. And you heard, we're also concerned about the time it takes to charge a vehicle, right? And that's the major hiccup, right? To generate as much energy as you need to charge a battery, it's hard to balance that versus how long it takes you to fuel a car with liquid fuel. So it's important for us. And charging is important. You also asked about the infrastructure. I don't think that every parking garage will have the same infrastructure. So you have to have multiple solutions. You can either have radar or cameras in the vehicle, or you need to have it in the facility itself. Right? So there's lots of good options.
One thing that really jumped out at me in the video that showed the robot charging is that with the automated parking feature, once it's done charging, the car moves to an open space so someone else can charge, which doesn't happen in real life. Sometimes people park and charge and then the car's fully charged and they leave it in the spot forever.
Yeah, I think some of the worst things that can happen is you want to charge your car and someone's plugged in. You don't know if they need to be plugged in or not. And you're like, oh, but you're stuck with that. And yeah, this charging infrastructure would allow for more efficient use of the equipment as well.
Okay. So I want to end with this question about the show so far. Bosch has made a big splash, but overall, what are your biggest takeaways? There's so many topics to consume here on the automotive side.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with the focus on energy this year and how people are looking at the way energy moves everything that they have in their life and how important it is to be cognizant of that. Because the amount of energy you consume today versus what you did 5 or 6 years ago is going to increase because everything we're using uses more energy. So what I found, at least in the show in the day and a half I've been here, is I'm really impressed with how many companies are focusing on that. And I think the more we focus on energy and the more we think about the delivery of power and the responsible consumption of it and creation of it, I found that really interesting at a consumer electronics show for me. Right.
Yes, very exciting. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for joining me.
Thank you. It was great.
It's a pleasure.